call this meeting to order. This is a Livingston Parish Council meeting. Today is May the 28th, 2020. It's a few minutes after 6 p.m. We'll now have the invocation by Mr. Randy Delatt.
Please bow your head. Let us pray. Dear wise and loving Father, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here tonight. Thank you for your many blessings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work. Thank you, Father, for the wisdom and courage to help people in need. Father, I pray for our council, asking that you grant us the desire and strength to right injustices and to fight for righteousness. I pray you give the council the ability to work together in harmony. Father, it is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Mr. Bubba, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Talbert.
Here.
Mr. Mack.
Here.
Mr. Wascom.
Here.
Mr. Delatt.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. McMorris.
Here.
Mr. Ard.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Garlinghouse.
Here.
Present.
All right. Cell phones, we ask now that everybody silence their cell phones so that we don't have any disturbances during the meeting. Appreciate that. Public input. Okay, in an effort to comply with the proclamations made by the Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards and Livingston Parish President Leighton Ricks, we offered the following to provide public input. Okay, we encourage the use of gloves and masks, if you so choose, while you're in the chambers. We supplied a sign-up sheet at the door entrance for you to sign up, write your name and address, and write your agenda item down if you so choose to make a statement or discuss an agenda item. Okay? As that agenda item comes up, you know, we have the list, and what we'll do, we'll call upon you when it's time, and you can come to the podium and make your statement or answer your questions or ask your questions, whatever you'd like to do. If at all possible, please, you know, don't touch the podium and that type of stuff, you know. Just stand there and address it. The speaker will pick you up. In addition to that, if the agenda item that you're concerned about, that you'd like to talk about, is, it's over, we would encourage, we would, if you'd like to, you can go ahead and exit, you know, in an effort to keep the minimal amount of folks within the chambers as possible, you know. Not forcing you to, but if you so choose, you can go ahead and exit after your agenda item is talked about. Okay, we've also limited the occupancy to 25% of the fire marshal rating for this building. Okay, and we are doing everything within our power to maintain a 6-foot distance. Right?
We're maxed out right now.
So we're maxed out. So what we're going to do is, if anybody else shows up, we're going to, you know, ask them to hold up, and then as those exit, then maybe they'll be allowed to come in if they so choose. All right? Appreciate that, Gary. Okay. That being said, I think we're able to move forward. You know, so we've got the list. We know what agenda item you're here to address, and we'll kind of handle it like that. Okay? Agenda item number 7. This is the adoption of the minutes from the May 14th, 2020 regular meeting of the Livingston Parish Council. I think that that's been asked to be tabled to the next meeting. Is that correct, Sandy? Okay, we don't have those minutes ready yet. All right. Agenda item number 8. This is adopt a resolution authorizing the parish of Livingston to proceed with the issuance of $2,100,000 of revenue refunding bonds, providing certain terms of said bonds, making application to the State Bond Commission for approval of said bonds, appointing bond counsel, independent registered municipal advisor and underwriter, and providing for other matters in connection therewith. It would appear to me that Mr. Jim Ryan is not in the chambers tonight, is he? Does anybody know if Mr. Jim's in the chambers tonight? Okay. That being said, is there anyone here that can speak on this subject matter?
Basically, it's just a formality to proceed on what we already voted on.
That's correct. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is this refinancing of some current bonds?
Yes.
This is refinancing of current bonds to save tax money. So that's bottom line. That's what this is.
I'll make a
Okay?
motion to move forward.
We've got a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the parish of Livingston to proceed by Randy DeLapp, seconded by Tracy Girlinghouse. If there's no other discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Are we okay with moving agenda item 17 up?
You
Majority
boss.
of the people is here for agenda item 17.
Well, let's go ahead and take care, let's
We
take
have
care
seven.
let's take care of 9 and 10. And then we can, let's do 9, 10. Well, let's at least get Sam and them out of here, and then we can move whatever we want to. Let's put
Okay.
them out. Let's get them out.
All right, I appreciate that. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move forward to agenda item number 9. This is an update on cable and progress report from Ed Cerna of Charter Communications.
Is Mr. Ed in?
Is Mr. Ed here tonight?
Okay, I'll give a short update. We have a long agenda. Basically, we sent the letters out to the school board and to our legislative delegates. I'm trying to get cable into the rural areas that doesn't have internet service now. And the school board has already been, I think, awarded $2.some million, so we're waiting some feedback on them on how they're going to spend that money. In the meantime, the legislative delegate has approved in the Senate and in our House a bill to let electrical rural companies provide this service if it's not already being provided for. So this hasn't been signed into law yet, but it's passed both the House and the Senate. So that's the information I have. Unless we got some feedback on the letters yet, I don't have any other information. Okay.
Anybody else have anything further to comment on this?
I'd like to put it back on the agenda for next meeting, and by that time, we should be where Ed can make it with his schedule of estimate what it's gonna cost.
Appreciate that, Mr. Randy. I know I've also contacted Mr. Ed, and he's coming up with a game plan to provide some cable services in District 9, you know, for people that don't have an opportunity to have that service. So appreciate that update, Mr. Randy, and look forward to hearing from Mr. Ed and that group next meeting, you know, to give us a little update. We probably need to take some action to contact Mr. Ed in some way, shape, or form and let him know that this agenda item is going to be on the next agenda.
Yeah, we can send him that. I could call him, and he calls about
Either
once
one.
a week. He
Either
calls
one.
once a week.
Okay, appreciate that. Agenda item 10A, this is the parish president's report. Livingston Parish Finance Department. There's Miss Jennifer
Good
Myers.
evening, gentlemen. Okay, I just have 4 real quick little grant resolutions that we need. One ratification and the other authorizing the parish president to enter into contracts with the awarded companies. The first one is the PW 1083. That's the road washout repairs. That was the visible damage road repairs that we wrote to PW for. They've awarded the contract to L. King. We have started it. We need a ratification of that progress.
Okay. Is there any is there any discussion from the council on this particular agenda item? Any questions?
Jennifer, so you've got budgeted the match and then the additional work in this dollar amount? We've got
Yes,
that?
sir. These are HMGP projects, so it's 75-25, but we have been awarded grants from OCD that will meet that 25% match, so these projects will cost us nothing. The only caveat here is it takes a little while. OCD is in no hurry, so this will put a hold on our cash for just a little while until OCD sends us that 25% match. So it'll be zero out of pocket. There's just a little waiting period for, they don't instantly send you one check and then another check.
I move we
Nice.
authorize that
Appreciate that.
resolution.
Motion by John Wascom, second by Jeff Ard. Any discussion from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
The second one is the US Highway 190 drainage project in Holden. This is to put the culverts underneath the railroad tracks.
Yep.
No, underneath 190, sorry.
190.
The
Yeah.
railroad is putting them underneath the railroad tracks. This is to put them underneath 190 to facilitate that drainage. Again,
Yep.
same thing, it'll be covered at 100%. We just have to wait to get our 25% back.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Randy Gilat, second by Bubba Harris. Any discussion, any questions? Call for the vote on this.
Mr. Talbert,
No.
Mr. Mack,
Yes.
Mr. Wascom,
Yes.
Mr. Delat,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris,
Yes.
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse.
Yes.
All right.
The next one is the West Codiel Creek Bank Stabilization Project. This was a result of the 2016 flood. It was a washout, but for some reason we couldn't get a PW written for this project, but we knew we could get hazard mitigation funds for it. So it'll be covered at 100%. And like these 25% matches that we'll have to wait on, they're not big amounts. I mean, like one was 11,000, one was 29,000. So it's not like we're waiting on millions of dollars, for a year. Even if OCD make us wait a year, it wouldn't be a big amount.
So moved.
Is this,
Motion. Oh, go ahead, Tracy.
Sorry, is this West Coyle south of the interstate?
You would ask me the one question I'm not prepared to talk about. I can't even tell you what this is.
Anywhere on West Coyle is good. I'll make a motion.
He made a motion.
I'll say.
Motion by John Wascom, second by Tracy Girlinghouse. Any more discussion? Sandy, to the best of my knowledge, just from looking at that sign-up sheet, there's nobody here to talk about any agenda items on 10. Okay. All right.
Call for the vote.
I call for the vote on that.
Mr. Talbert,
No.
Mr. Mack,
Yes.
Mr. Wascom,
Yes.
Mr. Delat,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris,
Yes.
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse.
Yes.
And the final one is the Town of Springfield Sewer Lift Stations Project. Every time the lift stations flood, we have to go in and do a bunch of work to them. I mean, y'all know how that works. This is just to elevate them and water seal that brick at the bottom so that we don't have that flooding issue again.
So move.
Motion by made by Randy Gilat,
Second.
second by Jeff Ard. I'm sorry. Any discussion, any questions? Call for the vote on this one too.
Mr. Talbert,
No.
Mr. Mack,
Yes.
Mr. Wascom,
Yes.
Mr. Delat,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris,
Yes.
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse.
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Okay, just so everybody knows, I guess we'll go ahead and do 11, 12, 13, and then we'll move to 17. Agenda item number 11, this is a public hearing and adoption of LP ordinance 20-05. This is a servitude revocation, John Cooper 4 on Old River Road. We will now open the public hearing, and Sandy is going to read the ordinance.
Libra. Map showing, this is proposed ordinance, LP ordinance 20-05, map showing revocation of the 40-foot and 50-foot servitude of access located on tract of being 32.83 acre tract of land of the remaining portion of the John Cooper Ford property located at 33365 Louisiana Highway 1019 Gum Springs, Louisiana, located section 61 and 64, Township 6 South, Range 2 East, Greensburg Land District, Livingston Parish, Louisiana, for John Cooper Ford, being more particularly described herein.
All right, is there any discussion on this particular agenda item? Anybody sign up for this one?
Is John Cooper in order?
No, no. This, I think he's selling some property, and he's just getting rid of it before the guy will purchase it. I think he's trying to get rid of a servitude that was created, you know, a long time ago, that there's, I think everybody signed off on it, there's no issue. And I don't think, the map says Old River Road, but I've always referred to it as Thunderbird Beach Road, so, but it's, you know what I mean, that's where it's at. It's where the tiki tubing place used to be, and, or is, or part of it is, so I'll make the motion.
I second.
Motion by Gary Talbert to adopt this ordinance. Who seconded it? Mr. Bubba Harris. Bubba Harris. If there's no more discussion, I'll now close the public hearing. All right? And then we can call for the vote on this.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yeah.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Mr. Delat?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Gerlinghouse?
Yes.
Okay. Appreciate everybody. Agenda item 12A. Mr. Sam DiGeronimo is here to speak on agenda item 12A. You want me to read it, Mr. Sam? or-
You can if you want.
Okay, this is to adopt a resolution acknowledging that the Livingston Parish Council shall accept ownership of whatever rights the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development may own of Eden Church Road, and agrees to accept all duties, obligations, and responsibilities for the operation, maintenance, and future liabilities associated therewith, for its operation and maintenance as a parish route, and authorize the parish president to execute any and all documents necessary to effect the transfer of the aforesaid described property at the proper time for state project number H 466.
And for the ones that doesn't know what all this is about, I spoke to Scooter, which is the representative councilman of the area. This is just the north end. It's on the north end of the roundabout. It's not the roundabout, it's a road. It's a little neck on the road. We've always maintained that it just needs to be put on paper, that we've taken it from DOTD and given it to the parish. So
Appreciate that information, Mr. Sam. Does anybody else have any questions about this? Anybody got a question about this? Did anybody sign up for an agenda item on this, Sandy?
No, sir.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor by Scooter King to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Second by Tracy Gerlinghouse. I'm sorry,
That's all right.
we'll start looking that way right there.
That's all right.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. 13A.
We do have someone here to speak on this.
Thank you very much for that information.
3 people.
13A.
Okay, first on your agenda is a minor resub with a waiver. This is for Mr. Melvin and Miss Kathleen Singleton. Number of lots on a servitude. This is in Mr. Randy Delat's area. 8 lots, Miller Road and Clarence Radcliffe Road. It is the recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to deny the waiver on number of lots on a servitude for Mr. Melvin and Miss Kathleen Singleton.
Mr. Randy, this is in your district. Do you have anything to say about this?
I mean, my recommendation is the same as the planning commission's recommendation, denied.
Okay, appreciate that information. We have some folks here that wanted to discuss this particular agenda item or make a statement. And so, like I said earlier, if you're from the same household, you can come up to the podium together. Sam, we're gonna ask you to
I'm gonna
maybe
move over.
come over here, you know, and kind of stay 6 foot away while they come up here. And so Sandy, can you read me the folks, just go first off the list.
For Mr. Bob Christian.
Bob Christian. Just, I forgot to say it earlier, but just protocol, state your name and the address so that they can kind of get that on record.
My name's Bob Christian. I live at 24380 Miller Road, Livingston. And I'm here to speak for several of the property owners. We have some in the back, but I was elected spokesman. We are against Mr. Singleton's proposal. He wants to use our gravel driveway to access some of his lots. That's a little single lane driveway, been there since the 40s. My father-in-law used it to access his property in the back where he farmed and raised cattle. And Mr. Singleton wants to dump his extra lots out on there. So we're in full agreement with the planning commission and hope that y'all would uphold that.
Appreciate that information.
Thank you, sir.
Sandy, is there anybody else?
Yes, sir. Miss Beverly McCord?
Miss Beverly, do you still want to talk about this?
No, I'm in agreement with Bob.
Appreciate you very
What's
much.
your last name?
Miss Beverly, what was your last name?
Moore, M-O-R-E.
Okay.
Okay, appreciate you. There's one more, right, Sandy?
There's two more. We
If
have,
they're different, they
the
can come.
one
If they
Christian.
agree, then there's no sense.
I agree with you, John.
That's me. We're all together.
You're all together and you're all in agreement and have the same opinion and view,
Yes.
okay? Is there any discussion from the council members? Any more?
I'd like to make a motion, we deny the waiver.
Got a motion on the floor by Randy Delat to deny the waiver. Second by Jeff Ard. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody that opposes? Waiver denied.
Okay, next on the agenda is an aggregate mining operation. This is in Mr. Gary Talbot's district. This is on Henderson, it's a Henderson lease aggregate mining. This is on Sims Road. No, I'm sorry, Ford Road, my bad. It is the recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to approve the aggregate mining for Henderson lease. They've met all the requirements.
They met all the requirements in the mining ordinance. Was there anybody want to speak on that, Susan?
Is there anybody here? Okay, there's no one here signed up to speak on this particular agenda item. Is there any more discussion from the council?
Well, it's gonna, there are a few times that stuff actually helps. That is a bowl. The Henderson property is a bowl for it. And so if we dig a hole and get down to the water table, we're gonna help drainage in the area, by it, because the water's gonna flow to the hole and it's where the bowl is. So, besides the fact it's gonna, the whole area of Watson was developed basically on the back of the mining industry. I think it's gonna be good for the people that live around there, that there are some drainage issues in that particular area. So I'd like to make the motion in favor of.
I'll second.
Got a motion on the floor by Gary Talbot to approve this preliminary plat.
I'll second that.
Second by Bubba Harris. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Okay,
13C.
next on the agenda, multifamily development. The reserves at Juban Lakes and Palms at Juban Lakes Phase 2, preliminary site plan. This is in Mr. Bubba Harris's district. It is a recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to approve the preliminary site plan for the reserves at Juban Lakes and the Palms at Juban Lakes Phase 2, contingent on receiving the notices from fire districts and gravity drainage districts that they receive, and if they receive the copy of the plans, and we have received the plans. They don't have any problem.
Okay.
Yes, that's the ones that we had trouble with on Bud Ellis, but now there's no waivers or anything they've asked for. So that's a good.
They have met all the parking requirements.
Yes.
Appreciate that
Sam, I got a question.
information.
Sure.
Gary, go ahead.
So, what was the requirement on the initial driveway with respect to the turn lanes on Buddy Ellis initially? Was there any work that had to be done on Buddy Ellis initially?
Murray, I need your help.
Yes, sir, that work's been completed.
Okay,
Murray's an engineer on the project.
We're supposed to be getting,
I didn't know.
it's okay, just for the record, it's part of the
Sure,
protocol.
absolutely.
Try not to touch the podium, state your name and address and the good
Good
stuff.
evening, gentlemen. My name is Murray McCullough, 11328 Pennywood Avenue in Baton Rouge, 70809, with Benchmark Group, the engineer on the project. There was a requirement when we did the Palms Phase 1 to put in a right turn lane on Buddy Ellis, but that work is completed and been accepted.
So as y'all continue to add traffic to that intersection, are you gonna have to update that driveway permit with the state on the additional traffic? Don't we require an update on how many more new cars enter that deal, and any additional requirements will require updates on that intersection?
Well, and I'll try to answer that, Mr. Talbot. First off, you said with the state, that's not a state road, just as I'm sure you know, but, and I'm not trying to be nitpicky, just for the record. When it was designed, and at the time we did the Palms first phase, we knew there was gonna be additional, traffic in there, so that was taken into account when that initially was designed. As I appreciated what we did as at the request of the staff and your engineering review agent.
So basically, the initial design accounted for however many units you're gonna have when this development's complete?
Yes, sir, I believe that is correct. If I believe that,
Was that true, Murray?
I think that's correct.
I don't remember offhand, to be honest with you.
But you will look at the initial traffic study on the road and then plug in the new numbers to make sure that we're not overloading that intersection, and any upgrades that need to be made will be made?
We can, I don't remember what was decided on this one, because it might have been taken care of with the turn lanes for the entire thing to be built
Yeah.
out.
Okay, I mean, I just all want to be sure, I just want to make sure that as we continue to add units and we continue to add cars, that that the intersection is adequate to make sure that it works.
And let me say this as well, Councilman, if you don't mind. This will finish this property line.
Right.
This is the last phases of this particular project.
Appreciate that.
Okay?
Anybody else have any other, any questions?
I'm all for motion to accept.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Bubba Harris, second by Randy Delat. This is to approve the preliminary site plan. Let's see, for the reserve at Juban Lakes and the Palms at Juban Lakes. This is phase 2 contingent upon receiving the notice from the fire district and gravity drainage district that they have received a copy of the plans. Same says they have.
They received those.
All right, if there's no more discussion, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Nobody? All right. Now we can move to agenda item number 17. This is discuss Riverscape subdivision roads. Mr. Randy Delat requested this be put on the agenda. Did you want to make a statement, Mr. Randy, before we start allowing the,
No, we can let them discuss, come up there. People
Okay,
come up.
okay. All right, so Sandy, we can just go straight down the list. Let me just go ahead and say something too. If you, you don't forget, the protocol, state your name and address. But if you're basically here to say the exact same thing, with no new info, then it's okay if you don't come to the podium and talk, so that we can kind of move along in the meeting. Okay? All right. So, Sandy, you've got, we're going to open up the floor for statements on this particular agenda item. You've got the first person. Looks like we've got our first person.
I think I'm the first one on the list.
Mike and Bonnie Turner.
Yeah, I'm okay. So my name is Michael Turner. I'm the Vice President of the Homeowners Association of Riverscape Development. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you folks this evening. In the order of expediency, I'm representing the folks that have all signed up on the page.
Excellent.
Okay. Just wanted to give you a brief update. I know at the last meeting, we had members in attendance and there was some back and forth, and I know that Mike Weir presented some of the activities we had done to try to improve the subdivision. Wanted to give you an update. As of yesterday, we spent another close to $6,000, which puts us over $16,000 in the last 12 months in an effort to put down crushed limestone and improve the roads. And as of this morning, all of the roads in the subdivision have at least had some effort put onto them to make up for some deficiencies and potholes and things of that nature. So just wanted to provide an update. I know you're considering that this evening, and we do appreciate everything that you're looking into for us. Does anyone have any questions for me? If not,
Has anybody got any questions?
okay. All right,
No?
thank you very much.
All right. Do the others that signed up to discuss on this agenda item, have y'all waived? Do y'all still want to come to the podium and make a statement? We're all in agreement? Okay. All right, that's wonderful.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Randy, you got the floor.
I think it may be appropriate at this time to remove it from the agenda because I put this on the agenda before Tuesday's committee meeting, and we have a process. My intent is to get these roads into the parish maintenance system, and the process dictates that we introduce the ordinance first, and so I'd like to remove it. Take no further action at this time.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, so no action needed on that particular agenda item. I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item. Sandy,
You want to go back to 14?
yeah, it seemed like 14 had some folks signed up. Yeah, so we're going to go back to 14. But it's close. Okay, you ready? Let's go with agenda item number 14. This is adopt a resolution to authorize a waiver of section 110-1 of section 110-1C in regard to an 8-foot high solid wood fence requirement between conflicting land uses and allow a 6-foot high solid fence to be granted to Jewel LLC on behalf of South Alexander Development 1 LLC located on George White Road, Holden, Louisiana in Council District 9, but this is actually in Council District 8. Yeah. Okay, so basically, well, actually, I think we have some representatives here that would like to come and talk about that.
Mr. Robert Smith.
Randy, did you want to have the floor?
Mr. Robert Smith.
Philip Mangum, I'm here to speak on behalf of Jewel or answer any questions.
Okay. Okay.
Appreciate that. Come on up, just state your name and address if possible. Try not to use the podium, but if you must, you're okay. There.
Philip Mangum, 1468 North White Street, New Orleans. So
Basically, what they're asking for, Demco's doing all over the parish, and they're trying to security-proof their property, and with a chain link fence and 3 strings of barbed wire works better than a wood fence. If they had a wood fence, they wouldn't need but one section of wood fence, and they want to do the whole piece of property. I don't understand why it's waiver, to be honest. I don't see why they just have to do it. You know, I don't know why it's a waiver. We're not requiring it.
Well, I think that if they're doing chain link, is the side facing property?
Well,
Or
wooded
side
area,
facing
a
residential
wooded area,
Yeah, it's,
and the road separates the property. But I mean, I'm in favor of the waiver. If that's
If that's a motion, I second it.
Motion by Randy Delat to adopt a resolution to authorize this waiver to put a chain link fence 6 foot high with then above that three strands of barbed wire to provide security over the entire development there. Yeah. Yep. So is there any more discussion? The second, was by John Wasco. Motion then second.
Correct.
Is there anybody else here that would like to make a statement on this?
well, I'd like to finish what
Go
I was
ahead.
saying before.
I apologize if you got cut off. Tracy, you can have the floor.
There was the question was, there's no residence, it's just woods, there's residential property, but there's no home.
There is some trailers that are, but it's commercial because it's rental property, and that's, I think, considered commercial. And most of those are across the road separates the property. There's a wooded area on, what is that, east or west? And then you got the interstate on the other side.
Yeah. From what I understand, he may be able to speak more on it. The development is on both the north and south side of James Chapel, right on the east side of the energy power line. So you have the power line in the width of the right-of-way and the power line, and then you have some field and some wood and then some residential property on one side, and basically on the other side, you've got what I believe to be a commercial trailer park, and then and some other residential property. But I went out and looked at it myself. I totally agree with providing a security fence, to try to prevent others.
I mean,
And so,
absolutely.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's what's best.
If there's no residential
Yeah.
like this, and there's a
Yeah.
road. then I'm-
Yeah.
I got a question.
I just wanted to
Go
clarify.
ahead.
I got a question for Sam, and I'm sorry I missed the first part of this. I thought that if you did not have a resident abutting the property, that the fence requirement didn't exist. The fence, if you've got non-developed land or woods or a high line or street, that part didn't apply, so that you didn't have a fence requirement anyway. Oh, I understand he wants to.
We're kind of trying to sort of enforce fences simply because, what's coming later.
Right.
But I think they wanted to do this. This is around those solar panels.
Correct.
And I mean, they're out there by themselves, but they don't want anybody in there.
Well, and I guess my deal is, they could put a 6-foot chain link fence with barbed wire up on their own, but they're asking us to waive the 8-foot fence requirement, and based on the way our order's written and the fact that there's no residential abutting it, I didn't think they would be required to put
There is a little bit of residential.
I think there is a little bit, I haven't rode out there, but I think there is
It is.
I think there's a trailer out there.
There's a trailer
But
park.
isn't there a buffer of a high line and then woods between
What they say in
them?
the ordinance is if you have a piece of property in between your residence and your commercial property,
Okay.
then you don't need it.
So if they would have subdivided the high line out, then it would have been a buffer and it wouldn't have mattered.
That's right.
Okay. Has anybody made a motion to grant the waiver?
Randy, you made that motion.
Yes.
It was seconded by John Wasco. Sandy,
You're
did you want?
granting the waiver with the conditions that they put the 3-line barbed wire up. Is that what you said earlier?
Right. 6-foot barbed wire fence.
And one
around the
more
development.
statement, one
This
more
is security. Go ahead, Randy.
Everywhere's in my district. I haven't been everywhere's in the parish, but Demco has substations up all over, and they got the same exact thing. Not a wood fence nowheres, and they have residential next to it.
Appreciate that,
Fence
Randy.
don't last that long, to tell you the truth.
Right. Appreciate it, Randy. All right. I'll call for the vote on this one if there's no more discussion.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Mr. Delat?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, you have one more person that had signed up to speak, Paul Connolly.
I'm with,
Okay.
He's with you.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much.
All right. So what other agenda items is people here to discuss? We already did 17.
27
Is that it?
and 24.
Yes, 24, we can move 24.
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Gerald, at your request, we'll move to 24 next. Agenda item number 24. Waiver request of section 125-27. This is driveway culverts and/or subsurface drainage for James Holland Jr. to allow subsurface drainage in a subdivision located at 27435 Gaylord Road, Walker, Louisiana, 70785. This is Smoker Rise subdivision. This is rural property, lot number 3. This is in Mr. Gerald McMorris's district. Did you want to open the floor and say something about
Yes,
that, Mr. Gerald?
first thing I want to say, the parish went in here years ago with a grant and put the drainage in. So what he wants to do here is tie into the drainage that we already placed in his property. So he's just going to finish off the rest of his property, the 160 feet to the open ditch, which goes to a 4-foot cover. All right, so I would love to see him grant the waiver to him. because it's not going to affect anyone on that road.
Okay.
He's got one neighbor, 300 yards from him, 400 yards. So he's going to be tied into existing that's already there.
Did you
I'll
want
make a motion
to?
to.
Okay.
Wait, it's 160 foot, and we got catch basins in there?
Yes, catch basins, if you'll look on
Per
your.
the ordinance?
Yeah, that's correct.
Existing ones.
I just drew out on the paperwork here.
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion on the floor by Gerald McMorris to grant this waiver to allow for the subsurface drainage. Seconded by Mr. Randy Delat. Is there any more questions or discussions from, it was just one person signed up? Did
It
y'all,
was Mr. James Holland.
Mr. James, did you want to say something on this particular agenda item, or are we good?
Prove it, make my wife happy. Wise words.
Why did you just start with that?
We always done that.
Okay, so we're going to call for the vote on this one too.
Mr. Talbot.
Yes.
Mr. Mack.
Yeah.
Mr. Wascom.
Yes.
Mr. Delat.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. McMorris.
Yes.
Mr. Ard.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse.
Yes.
All right. Passes. Is there,
There you go.
what was the other one?
Number
27.
27, and then somebody had just put roads on the
No,
last
so they want
sheet.
to discuss on, that's to discuss, 19.
So 27 was mine also.
27, go ahead, Mr. Gerald, you got the floor on that.
Mr. Larry.
Chitney?
Right. So he had called me a couple weeks back in between working and everything that was happening with him and myself. We couldn't meet up. One of the road, look, this road is almost a half a mile long. What he's running into is a lot of speeding, people doing donuts in the middle of the blacktop. So I have sent to the parish to put up more signs, speed limit signs, get the police more involved on Dot Lee Drive. See what we can do to help these people out. Is the speed bumps going to resolve the issue? They probably would, but what is it going to do to the fire trucks, the rescue, for people, for rescue? So I wanted him to come tonight so we could discuss this, because I know we all have the same roads, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we as a councilman listen to this man's concerns, and then I'm gonna move forward after the meeting to go forward, whatever we decide later.
Okay. Mr. Larry, would you like to come to the podium and say a few
Yeah.
words?
Larry Chernick, 13773 Dot Lee Drive, Denham Springs. I've been living there since 2011, and since I started living there, you know, the people think this little subdivision was theirs, they can run over it, do what they want to do with it. They've come down Dot Lee, run across 447 in the ditch, I know at least twice, run in my front yard at least twice, spun around in the neighbor's front yard over there. But have we got a problem with it? And there's numerous calls to the sheriff's office where I've called for speeders coming down there. And I've called for this last one that speeded, that he just pulls on the road, stops, power brakes at 300 foot in front of my house. Because it's a straightaway. It's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. We got one I know of on the road. And it just got put back up maybe a year ago. There, so. You know, we're trying to tell the people now when it runs over a little kid, I'm going to be back down here looking at all y'all. Saying they done killed a kid because we're not trying to do anything out there. And that's about all I got to say. So y'all can.
So.
Appreciate you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Gerald.
So that was my concerns with speaking with what I'm over the phone. So I wanted to make sure that as a councilman, I would do my part to make sure we get the signs up, get the documentation down, get the sheriff involved, talk with Jason already. So
Well, I got
That-
one other
that's the
question with
move
the
we wanna
sheriff
make.
thing.
Okay, come on back.
Since, you know, we ain't got these schools in place, all the sheriffs that's been at the schools all the time, well, they come sit on Dot Lee Road and write tickets. Got perfect places for them to sit at. I mean, there ain't no schools going on,
Well,
so we should have a few extras.
They did put them back in the road.
Yeah.
I can tell you that most of them deputies are sitting at home not drawing a paycheck.
Well, they come over there and write tickets all day long and make paychecks.
Well,
All right, let's not,
I can tell you that.
I think that we can all,
Well, they can get them sitting over there writing paychecks.
well, hold
I'm
on now,
sure.
you need, yeah, okay, so I just want to make a statement on that, and then we'll kind of move forward. I can tell you from the bottom of my heart that the sheriff department and everyone involved in that whole entire program is doing the very best they can to keep everyone in this entire parish safe. It's unfortunate that you can't have a deputy on that road 100% of the time, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're doing everything they can to keep everybody safe on that road right there. And so, that being said, is there a motion on the floor to take any action to do anything for this particular agenda item?
I'd like to discuss something.
Okay, so go ahead, Mr. Randy.
In the previous years, the council was advised by the attorney that speed bumps was a liability issue and was not allowed. I don't know if they put them down, being I'm new to the council, but I know in previous years, that was a recommendation of the attorney, that speed bumps were not allowed.
well,
Okay, appreciate that. Go ahead, Gary.
well, I know we've been told, I remember when we first came to the council, we were told, oh, it's against the law to have speed bumps. Well, it's not against the law to have speed bumps. Speed bumps or speed humps or whatever can be designed in such a manner that it doesn't, I mean, it's gonna make a school bus slow down, or it's gonna make a fire truck slow down, just like a car has to slow down. But it's not gonna stop them from traversing the road, it's not gonna tear their vehicles up or anything else. But they're gonna have to slow down. We tried last year in the ordinance committee to take up a design standard, and we kinda got bogged down with some other stuff and never got finished. But I believe that the council ought to take up and get a design standard for speed humps. And then, I mean, you just can't go put them everywhere. I mean, you gotta have a traffic engineer, evaluate a road and tell you if the speed hump will work. But right at the current, we have no avenue to move forward. And I think we need to look at ordinance. We need to, I know we got a lot on the table in the ordinance committee, but it's something that needs to be addressed, is to create a standard of a design standard for speed humps. And we also need to create a method, a way that a road can be submitted and evaluated and determined if it qualifies. Because, I mean, heck, I know if you put them ever so often, you're gonna slow people down. Is that overkill or you know what I'm talking about? I mean, we need to have a professional who evaluates that stuff and make those determinations. And I just think it's something that if we're gonna look at as a traffic calming measure, we probably need to write a design standard and a method to get them evaluated to determine if they're, something that would be effective in a given situation.
Mr. Chairman.
I know we worked on that last year, whatever, in the ordinance committee. And like you say, we never really came up with the design.
So, Mr. Randy's got something to say?
I'm telling y'all guys, that's the biggest can of worms, period. That's worse than I don't know wake signs. Everybody that lives on a parish road is gonna want one in front of their house. That's impossible.
Oh, Randy, I don't disagree with you. I just think that it's, I think that though that you go in other communities and you see them in particular situations, and there had to be a reason that they were placed there. And so consequently, I just think that you've got to come up with a standard, and you got to come up with some evaluation process and, some reason to put them there. And just to say, we can't do it, I mean, if it can be done other places, we can do it here. We just got to figure out the avenue to get it done.
Appreciate that.
Mr.
Is there any more? Go ahead.
One more. I'd be willing to bet that most places that you see it done, the subdivision does it itself, the homeowner subdivision. But I'm telling you, that's a big expense for a parish to take.
Appreciate
Just in
that.
my district alone, there's 300 miles of parish road. That's
Appreciate
5
that.
speed bumps a road.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Gerald. Go
I'm asking
ahead.
the council to give me time to work on this road with the neighbors. I've been over there talking to different ones. Let me get the speed limit signs put up, and we're gonna move forward to get people's awareness. Okay, that's the first thing I wanna do, all right? So, thank you
Okay.
for coming tonight. I sure appreciate it. The council hears your concerns, and appreciate you coming.
All right, you put this agenda item on the agenda, and so at your request, we'll, take no action and give you the time that you requested to work out this situation. That sounds fantastic. And then, Mr. Gary, if one of y'all so chose to,
We can.
in a different manner, put this on the ordinance committee, that would be perfectly fine also.
I think I understand what Gary was trying to say. We're not in a position to vote either way. We can't vote to do it, we can't vote not to do it, because we don't have enough information. We need a criteria. Because I'm leaning toward Mr. Glad's opinion that, it's a can of worms and everybody in the world will want them. But at the same time, there might be a situation where it's absolutely called for, and if we have a criteria set where we can go, no, you don't meet the criteria, or you might absolutely meet it. And I'm not saying that Dotley isn't one of those. I'm not saying it is either. We just don't know enough. So yeah, we can bring it to the ordinance committee. We meet once a week.
But that's got nothing to do with your effort to move forward, Gerald, and try to get your problem solved.
All right. So I think that's probably enough discussion on that particular agenda item. We can go ahead and move forward to another agenda item. Let's go ahead and go to 15. Thanks, Gary. This is an actual introduction of an ordinance, add section 49-94, penalties for violations, Article 3, parking, Division 2, regulations and exceptions. Mr. Jeff Ord requested this be put on the agenda. Did you want to open the floor up on this, Mr. Jeff?
I've had numerous calls, subdivisions, people parking on parish roads, blocking entrances, we can't get fire trucks down, we can't get ambulances, school buses, people parking into T-turns and the school buses can't turn around, they're trying to get kids picked up. This is against the law already. It's already against the law, it's an ordinance that you cannot park on the side of a parish road. But it's too hard for the sheriff's office to enforce it because we don't have nothing but basically an ordinance that says it's against the law. So he would have to have everybody's vehicles towed off, and that's going to cost people $500-600. So I've talked to Mr. Sam recently. Me and him talked about it. He talked to some of the sheriff's office people, and we felt, let's put a fine. Let's put a fine, show them that we're serious about it, and like I said, it's already the law. If you don't want to pay the fine, don't park on the side of the road. It's no difference than speeding. If you don't want to pay a speeding ticket, go to speeding. But we've got to give them some kind of backbone to where they can enforce these type of ordinances. So I put it in, Mr. Sam talked, we started off, we said $250 for the fine. That's open for discussion if y'all want to talk about that. That was just what we thought would kind of put some backbone to the ordinance. So that's pretty much what we come up with.
I think it's
Appreciate
important.
that. Go ahead, Gary.
I think it's important to note this was discussed Tuesday night in the ordinance committee meeting, and it came out with a unanimous recommendation to add this wording to the existing code the way it's set up. So
Appreciate
if
that.
Jeff would offer a motion, I'd second it.
I'll make the motion.
We're gonna read this ordinance real quick. Go ahead.
Okay, this is going to be proposed ordinance 20-6. This is an ordinance to amend Article 3, Parking Division 2, Regulations and Exceptions of Chapter 46, Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Code ordinances of Livingston Parish by adding section 46-94, penalties for violations, by establishing a penalty fee of $250 per violation occurrence, and the public hearing will be at 6 p.m. on June 11th.
All right. Jeff Ard made the motion. It was seconded by Gary Talbert. Tracy, did you want to say anything? I know we talked about that in the ordinance committee meeting.
No, I think it's a good thing. We want to clarify that it's not just like in parish roads, we can say like in these tight neighborhoods, where you come in and not only is it makes it difficult to get vehicles in and out, like you said, fire trucks, DPW, a lot of times they can't get where they need to on some of these subsurface drainage because, I mean, there's cars parked in the way and the owner nowhere in sight. Because people are using it for parking. I mean, like they pull up in front of their house, they park in the road. And I think it's also important to point out that when you park, when the car's on the side of the road, you kind of lose that line of sight between the yard and the house. And kids can, you can't see if there's a kid on the other side of that parking step right out in front of you when you go to go around. Yeah, this is, and it's also, like Mr. Ard said, it's already against the law. We're not, you're not supposed to do it anyway, so.
Yeah.
I think the Rules Committee was in agreement on this.
Excellent. So, did anybody over here have anything?
I'd like to say something real quick.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. John.
And I was in the ordinance committee when we spoke about it. I think it's a good idea. Now, I just want to clarify. So the sheriff's deputy would issue like a ticket. Am I correct? And then they would have a summons at court, so they would go to a judge, and the judge would I think $250 is a fair price for somebody who just refuses to do it. Would it be okay? It says that $250 for each can be fined, $250 for each parking violation. I know in the city, when we did pass speeding prices for speeding tickets, we did up to $250. Because there may be cases where the judge, they come in and the judge say, look, this is a little different. The first time is $60, $80, $100. So if we could do up to $250, that way the judge has a little leeway there. And if it's softer, if he sees that a $100 fine would fix the problem versus a $250 might be rough. So, I mean, then it would be the judge. You okay with that? Okay, I'd like to make that change if you don't mind.
Good with that on his motion. I'm good with it on the second.
You good with that?
Yeah.
You good with that? Sandy, can y'all
Change it to up to?
Up to
modify that real quick?
So what you're gonna need to do,
This is an
you
introduction,
haven't voted yet,
right?
so you're okay, you don't have to amend it, and then
No, you don't have to amend it, I'm just talking about scratching it out so that when we do open the public hearing, that we got it right. Yeah, it's just an introduction.
So we have a motion and a second, we need to vote now.
All right, motion and a second. There's no more discussion? There is more discussion. Gerald, you got something?
No, I'm good. I'm just thinking about safety, I don't live in a subdivision, but coming down the road, running into the back of a car, that's what I see on the Walker South side. It just happening the same way, just car after car. You couldn't get around some of the places, so I support it, so.
Appreciate that, Mr. Gerald. Anybody else? All right. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, let's move forward. Agenda item number 16. This is also an introduction of an ordinance. This was requested to be placed on the agenda by Mr. John Wascom. We'll give him the floor. This is to amend section 125-78, generally Article 3, commercial developments, to allow pervious materials for parking areas. Mr. John, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was brought that up at the Mr. Garlinghouse's ordinance committee Tuesday night, and I want to commend the ordinance committee for supporting me. But they give me a fight, but they did a good job. What it is we've discovered that in the Livingston Parish Code of Ordinances, every commercial business in the entire parish is required by a law that we have that says you will pour paved concrete or asphalt for your entire parking lot. It doesn't matter if it's a McDonald's, a Walmart, a snowball stand, Joe Blow's bait and tackle, or what, you have to pour, and we wind up having to give variances because it's not needed in all applications. And so we went around it and then we talked about the benefits of pervious material, how it keeps stormwater runoff from running off into the ditches and bringing gasoline and oil from parking lots. So it definitely improves drainage, lets it absorb into the ground. And there's other cities or around the nation that actually pass laws now that you can't pour concrete. I didn't want to go that far, and we talked about it, and some of the requirements that the ordinance committee had were I still disagree with, but hey, you know, I'm good. But Mr. Talbert had a good one, and he said that he's concerned that gravel might, if people have limestone, it might go in the road. So what we done is we took out the requirement that people have to pour the concrete or asphalt. And of course, the big chains are still going to do what's needed to provide a quality service to their customers. But not all are going to need that. And they were concerned about the Americans with Disabilities Act for people who have wheelchairs. So they still have to meet those guidelines, and if they have to pour concrete to do that, then I'm sure they will. Mr. Ard brought up the state fire marshal's guidelines for emergency vehicles for a fire truck going in. It needs to have a solid foundation, so we add that they have to follow the state guidelines for emergency vehicles. And Mr. Talbert's resolve to the problem of gravel and limestone being slung out into the road was where the state has a requirement that you have to have a buffer, an apron off of the road before you get into your property. That way rocks and stuff don't spin as you're exiting or entering the property. I thought that was probably one of the best arguments to add to it. So I put those 4 things in here, or those 3 items, and it was a lot of hard work, but we muddled through. And I'd like to make a motion that we introduce this ordinance.
I'll second. Hell froze over, but I'll second.
Motion on the floor by,
I know, second by Mr. Talbot, huh? For John Wascom. We better adjourn this meeting.
motion on the floor by John Wascom.
Well, somebody
Second
said
by
something
Gary
froze
Talbot.
over on the internet, but
Sandy, you go ahead and read the ordinance.
This will be proposed ordinance 20-7. This is an ordinance to rescind and reenact chapter 125 subdivision regulations, article 3 commercial developments, section 125-78 generally of the code of ordinances, and for the parish of Livingston to amend the criteria of mandated paved surfaces for commercial developments. And the public hearing will be at 6 p.m. on June 11th.
All right, did anybody sign up to talk
it
about
doesn't
this?
say either one.
All right. Is there any more discussion?
I'll tell you that.
All right. Call for the vote?
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yeah.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Mr. Delad?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. McNamara?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. The Livingston Parish will enjoy this. I want you to know this is the right move to make. I
All
appreciate
right.
y'all doing it.
Agenda item number 18, this is discussion and possible introduction of an ordinance modifying the current sewer ordinance. Mr. Randy DeLapp requested this be put on the agenda. Did you want to open the floor, Randy, or you want to let maybe?
We're gonna, I talked to Chris, we're gonna introduce it as it's written. We're gonna, the girls are gonna go sit down across the hall in the other building and make sure that it does what it needs to do. If there's some modification that needs to be made for him to feel comfortable with it, they will make that modification, send it to Mr. Chris. If he feels that it's too much of a modification to our introduction, we'll reintroduce in 2 weeks. If he doesn't feel it's too much of a modification, then we'll amend it before we have the public hearing, and then we can vote on it. I think is Chris, Mr. Moody, am I correct in that?
Yes.
So that's kind of where we stand on this, Randy.
Okay, if anybody want to discuss it, I make a motion we introduce the ordinance.
Got a motion on the floor to introduce this ordinance as written. Second by Scooter King. Is there any discussion? Go ahead and read it, Ms. Sandy.
This week proposed ordinance 20-08 is an ordinance to rescind and reenact chapter 70 utilities, article 5 sewage disposal systems, section 70-265, permit required of the code of ordinances in and for the parish of Livingston to amend the guidelines for required sewer permits. The public hearing will be at 6 p.m. on June 11th.
And look, a clarification for the public. This is the intent of this ordinance. Basically, right now, every time you go get an occupancy permit, if you have a mechanical sewer treatment plant, if you're not tied to a community sewer system, you have to go across the hall and get approval. And there's a standard operating procedure that depending on this, you gotta do that. And basically what it amounts to is every 2 years, they need to be recertified. So basically what we're gonna do is, the request is, or the change that we're making, is that if you go across the hall to the health unit and you have a good 2-year certification, that the letter is issued. If you do not have a good 2-year certification, then you gotta go through the whole process of inspection and recertification. But if you have a good 2-year recert, then they issue the letter and then the power can get turned on. That's because, I mean, if the certifications are good for 2 years, then they're good for 2 years. And so that's basically the change that we're making. That's what everybody understands. And we're gonna make sure that our wording that we've got in here is exactly what Mr. Keenan Glover needs for him to enact that deal, so.
Just for clarification purposes, who is it that specifically grants that certification or that document that you're referring to?
Different licensed guys that can work, that the state licenses that can do it. So typically installers or maintenance people that have been licensed by the state can do the recertification. And all we're trying to do is as it exists now, if the power's off, they don't go do an inspection. And so it's just, if the research's good, they issue the letter. However, if the power's on, they go do an inspection. If the GFI's tripped, you fail. If the unit's unplugged, you fail. And then if you fail, it requires a recert, and so it becomes overly costly. So what we're saying is a 2-year if a certification is good for 2 years, once it's done, it's good for 2 years, and you don't need to go inspect it again.
So the licensed contractor with the certification to provide
Would actually
documentation.
come provide the documentation to the health unit, and then the health unit would have it on file.
As they're doing now.
As they're doing that.
Okay, is there any?
I'm not on the.
Okay, well, we're gonna let you come on up to the podium and talk. Just try not to, if you can, touch the podium, and don't forget to introduce yourself. I know we know you are, but this is just protocol.
Abby Crosby, 19866 LA Highway 42. I watched the ordinance meeting the other night, and one thing that caught my attention was they said that the health unit recommends or tells the people who to go get the sewer inspected. Is that a guideline that has to be followed, and why would the health unit be making those recommendations of these certain companies?
Because the only recommendations they can make are people that are licensed. So basically what happens, if you need a recert, they can give you a list of people that are certified in your area that can do it. They're not making a recommendation of who to use. They're telling you that these are the only people that can do it, that we will recognize their certification because they're the only ones licensed. Just like not everybody, just because you have a backhoe doesn't mean you can go put a MODAD down.
Right.
You've got to be, MODAD's got to give you approval, and then you've got to be certified by the health unit to do the installation. It's the same process. The state, if you take a test, stay up to date on your paperwork, then you can go do research. So when they give you a list, it's not a recommendation of use this particular person.
Okay.
These are the people that are qualified to do it.
Okay, the way it was said, it kind of made it look.
Yeah,
like,
they're just giving you a list of people that are qualified to do the certification.
That's what that
okay.
is.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate you. Appreciate that clarification. Anybody else? Okay, I can't remember. Did we have a motion?
Got a motion by Mr. Delat and second by
Randy
Mr.
Delat
King.
made a motion and Scooter King seconded. And we read the ordinance introduction. So we need to call for the vote.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Mr. Delat?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Greenhouse?
Yes.
Okay. Agenda item number 20. This is a waiver request.
Number
of-
19.
Oh, my bad. Thank you, Gary.
Don't skip that one.
Give it 19. All the ones to skip.
Well, the truth is, number 19, okay. So, this is agenda item number 19.
And we have somebody that wanted to talk about roads.
Okay, good. And this is discussion and possible introduction of an ordinance of criteria used for making for taking in roads. And Mr. Randy Delat requested this be put on the agenda item. This was something discussed and worked out in the ordinance committee, a couple of ordinance committee meetings. So we're going to open the floor, Mr. Randy Delat, to talk about this.
I would like to make a motion that we propose this ordinance hearing, to have a hearing on this ordinance, to take in type D roads. And basically, these will be roads not in a capital outlay program, but roads that can be maintained if they have mail service, garbage service, or school bus service. It has to serve a public purpose. It has to have 5 houses on the road or more. It also has to have, residential service. It must be a name road with 911 addresses.
Appreciate that, Mr. Randy.
Did you make that motion?
Yes, sir.
That's a motion, seconded by Scooter King. We do have someone here that would like to discuss it. Why don't you go ahead and read it, Sandy? And then we're going to open up the floor for some questions. Go ahead and read it, Sandy.
Okay, this will be proposed ordinance 20-09, an ordinance to amend chapter 58, roads and drainage, section 58-3, types of roads, and amend by adding section 58-6.2, type D roads, of the code of ordinances in and for the parish of Livingston. The public hearing is 6 p.m. on June 11th.
All right. And in addition, we can go ahead and open up the floor for discussion. I did have something I wanted to say about that I think we need to consider during the introduction of that.
Mr. Keith Casapo?
Is Mr. Keith here tonight? Did he leave earlier when?
He probably.
How about it, Mr. Keith?
Oh, he probably lived.
Riverscape. It's Riverscape.
Probably lived in Riverscape.
He's from Riverscape. He's from Riverscape. Mr. Keith.
He just signed up on the
He
wrong.
was with Riverscape.
He's with
Probably thought
Riverscape.
that's what it was.
Let Mr. Gerald check and double check.
TCHULA.
He signed up on
Nobody
the
out there?
wrong item.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sure that's what it was.
So,
Chairman.
all right, so I'd like to open up the floor for discussion. Is there anybody here that would like to make a comment or anything about that? We already have a motion and a second. One thing that
I
comes,
would.
go ahead, Tracy. No, you go.
I just wanted to clarify on this, the reason why we felt the need to do the type D streets. These are basically gravel roads that, and I'm just giving a general reason why we're doing this. This could be like a gravel road, or it could be a paved road that's never didn't meet the current parish standard. Nonetheless, there are people who live on these roads that pay taxes, and we can't go in and we can't grade it legally because it's not in the system. So we felt that in order to help and to give people, I guess, I feel like they kind of deserve to have some kind of service done. So you're not talking about a huge expense. It's minimal. You go out there, you grade their gravel road for them, and you make it passable. But some of these roads are horrible. I mean, you can't get it. We're not talking about a few potholes. We're talking about a bad situation. Or Mr. Delat, and I think Shane, you'd said you have some in your district that way. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So this in no way, you still, in order to be put on the overlay, you still have to meet the criteria. And understand that most of these roads that'll be a type D essentially will never meet the criteria. Say they can't, I won't say they can't because anything can happen, but they would have to meet the criteria of width and, turn around at the end as it stands right now. Otherwise, if they could have met the criteria, they would have done it already and they would be in the system already. So I think this is something that it's going to be good because it's not going to cost but a little bit of time and minimal effort to make these roads passable and make them good for people you know, you have to travel back and forth. It's good for, a lot of buses go down these roads, but, and, you know, they have I'm sure it's just rough on these vehicles and people who live down them. So that's the whole mindset behind this. And it's just, I think it's going to be a good thing. I don't, and reading stuff online, I see where people think that, oh, well, this is just a way to get into the system and then later they can get, no, it's not that. Absolutely is not that. So until if you don't meet the criteria of the ordinance as it stands right now, as far as getting on the overlay program, you will not get on the overlay program. At least that's where this council stands.
That's
You know, you will not get on the overlay program if you don't meet that criteria. This is not about the overlay program. This is about making courtesy grades and a little patchwork legal for DPW to go and do.
We're gonna get you. Appreciate you, Tracy. Didn't want to cut you off.
That's okay.
Did you finish?
Yeah.
Okay, so he raised his hand first here.
I think,
So Scooter, you go.
well, at the very minimum,
Yes.
and I saw the same things online that you did, and I got a call from my friend. He said, man, y'all are opening a can of worms. And I told him, I said, no, sir. I said, that's why it's deep. Those roads, I've got one that we can try and grade, but the buses used to go down it. They won't go down it now. In my district, it has 14 homes on the road. And a lot of kids, a lot of things going on. They getting their mail at their house. The school buses were going. After this happens, they'll put the DPW will put the very minimum that they have to do to make the road passable. And not upgrade any of these roads. It's just to fix it where they can pass. You know, help the people living on the road.
Appreciate that. Gary, did you want to say something?
Well, I think you and John can both attest in the past that I've been very adamant about what roads ought to be in the system and what roads ought not be in the system. And I still feel like, I mean, it's not, there's not been a secret about it. I mean, but I think this situation, that the criteria that we came up with to determine what roads would be able to be maintained, all tied to public use and public safety. And that was important to me. You know what I'm talking about? That sheriff's vehicles and ambulances and fire trucks, and then basic services of postal or school buses or garbage could make it down. If those weren't part of the mandates, I wouldn't be really in favor of it. You know what I'm talking about? But because those services are needed by those individuals that live on those roads, and because those services are important, I'm willing to, you know, waver a little bit on my past stances, and I think this is a good addition to the deal, and so consequently, that's why I was in support of it and tried to help, you know, hammer out a specific criteria so we don't just take in somebody's driveway and go grade it. We're actually, you've got to meet some standards before we're going to come do it. And I think that's what we need to do, and I'm in full support of this ordinance.
Appreciate that very much. Well said. I wanted to make a little quick statement too, just, and I'm going off of memory here. I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but this is really a question to you all. I know that when it talks about the ordinances that talk about divisions of property, you know, it makes a reference in there, you know, you can divide so many lots on a parish road versus, and then so many lots on a servitude and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think I understand the intent already. You know, I think we talked about it, you know, in the ordinance committee meeting. You know, this was, the intent here was to able to provide some maintenance work on these substandard roads. And wanted to thank Mr. Randy for spearheading this project, and then I wanted to thank that all the councilmen for working together as a team to benefit the people of Livingston Parish on this. But I think that we probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Moody or Sam or anybody, Chad, anybody here, that these roads would be subject to the same requirements if you were dividing property on a servitude.
Yep.
This is not, go ahead, Gary, you want to say something?
I think this is still a red road. This isn't a parish road. This is a road that the parish can do maintenance on, but it's by definition not a parish road. So this would still not allow additional lots. I mean, this shouldn't, if you go do a minor resub on this road, just because we're maintaining it, doesn't make it a parish road to allow for a limited resubs. I mean, that's my feeling on the intent, that this is a red road.
Okay.
And red roads aren't parish roads.
I agree with that to a certain extent. You know, I know the intent there was, you know, these roads will be maintained to the extent that what I call a full-blown road into the parish maintenance system is, you know. But we need to, I'm gonna get you, Randy, we probably need to take some action, maybe Mr. Moody, over the next 2 weeks, see if we need to add some type of verbiage in there to ensure beyond a shadow of a doubt that, you know, that you know, when it comes to divisions of property, you can't go in off of one of these roads and put in a full-blown subdivision with improvements off of it, you know what I'm saying? Because of, I mean, there's a whole list of reasons, utilities and things of that nature, you know, and drainage and all these things, you know, so, I just kind of wanted to mention that. So, Mr. Moody, could you take that action and then, you know, advise, you know, how you feel about that situation? But I do think that, once again, y'all did a really good job putting this together and working on it, and the criteria, I think, is, you did a good job. So, Randy, you got something to say?
I agree with what you and Gary both were saying about re-subdividing the property. The only thing that I have a problem with, and I hope Mr. Moon is able to work it out, is the verbiage about it not being a parish road. Because I think if you spend money on it, it needs to be a parish road. You know, it could be a red road, but it still needs to be a parish road.
I think we're going to be able to work that out. I do think this would be considered a parish road, but it would be under subsection D and not be subject to the same requirements as A, B, and C.
I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned that somebody says all of a sudden that this road that doesn't meet the standard is now, because it's D, can now all of a sudden, you know, where we just denied a waiver, you know, earlier. If this is classified as a parish road, then all of a sudden, once you get a name on it and a 911 address, then all those lot restrictions don't apply anymore. That's why I was concerned. That's why my thought is it's a red road, which is different than a quote parish road. Right. So Mr. Moody will have to help us with that wording to put that in this particular ordinance so that we don't have that problem bite us in the butt at a later date.
Yep, appreciate y'all very much on that. Yep. So, is there anybody else that would like to make a comment on this particular agenda item real quick so we can move forward? Okay, so we'll go ahead and let you comment on this. You want to come up to the podium and state your name and address?
Christian, 24380 Miller Road, Livingston. We just was wondering if the homeowners on the road don't want any, we have ours maintained. We've graded it, we've got gravel on it, you know, it's our family servitude. So if you don't want your road in the system, then you don't have to have it. So, but if you have one person that wants it and all the rest don't.
If you don't call, they won't come.
Yeah, well, we're not calling because the grader's too wide for our road. The one that you were just talking about, the one that we denied the waiver.
Right.
Because when the grader comes down it's too wide. It pushes the gravel that we bought into the ditch. So we have a tractor with a grader box and all that we maintain ours. As a matter of fact, we just bought $1,200 worth of gravel and put on it.
That's private property, and you own that.
Yes. And it's not named someone.
That's right.
One of the persons that lives in the back
property.
that has no ownership actually worked for the parish for a little while and got a red sign made. Nobody on that road ever agreed to that red sign. It is strictly a private driveway with family.
So y'all don't have 911 addresses to say Miller Road?
Yes. We have we're Miller Road.
We're not Miller Road.
Y'all just said Clarence Ratcliffe Road. There's no such thing. It's not. It's never been named.
I'm sorry. Whatever. Y'all
I mean, they refer to it as that because that was my dad's name. But it's never. We've never asked for that road to be named or anything like that. So we just want to make sure that if we don't want, you can't take it, right?
No, absolutely.
We're not in the business of trying to go get some. We don't have to. We don't want to.
Appreciate that.
Like I said, I did not see that.
I had 1,000 ideas what somebody might say, but
That
We don't want you coming down our road.
Well, there are,
You will not come.
I like that.
there are some benefits, you know, to things remaining private.
Well, they still live in the free state of living.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
So I'm from the Wall South, so just want to speak on behalf of other people. So there is roads, just like there's people live on the end of the street that has 911, has all the other services, that is documented in the court of servitudes that they have the right of way to use their roads. So that's going to come up, I promise you. So that's something we're going to have to look at. So, and they are a prime example of what's going to come forth before us.
I would think it would take a petition to the people living on that road.
In the
and
past,
ask them to take it in. And it just depends on.
Well, then that's something we might ought to, I mean, we can introduce it tonight, but maybe we need to have a petition
100%.
100% to get it in the future.
I like it.
We'll look at that, wording, and we'll ask Mr. Moody to help us if y'all would.
So we got two actions there.
Gee, that's the way it needs to be.
Yep. Okay, so we got one more, and then we're gonna move forward. Mr. Eric, come on, but don't forget to state your name just for the protocol.
Did you sign up?
No, I didn't sign up.
Eric,
You're
limited to
1049
30 seconds.
Serene Road. All right, y'all talking about safety for these roads, right?
Mhm.
All right, I got 8 pumps on my road. Don't pass electrical code.
Point of order.
No, it's not a point of order.
It is a point
It
of
is the
order.
same thing. How many times y'all want to talk about votes during the last ordinance meeting? It's all about
Mr.
votes.
Chairman. point of
Okay,
It's
so,
all it is.
yeah, let's get to that real quick.
I'm done.
Okay, good. Appreciate that, Tracy. And appreciate that,
We
Mr.
can
Eric.
talk about it, but not right now.
If you were talking about safety.
Well, hold on, let's make it out.
My 9 houses on my road,
Eric.
ain't no safety, huh?
Eric, if an agenda item, you know, comes up on the agenda, you know, that addresses that
Y'all
particular
won't put it
agenda
on the
item,
agenda, but y'all skip it.
then we'll talk about that one. So, let's move on forward. I think that's enough. Brandon, come on up if you got something to say, then we're gonna move forward. Don't forget to state your name and address there.
Brandon Browning, 39205 LA Highway 16, Denham Springs, Louisiana 70706. So forgive me if I ask a stupid question. I'm just trying to learn this process. So as I was listening to this in the committee meeting the other day, my only question was, do we have any idea how many roads this is? And how well have we done with the roads that we already have in the parish, taken into context the budget? And if we don't have any idea how many roads this is, then how do we know that we have the budget for it? Just on the, I don't want the answers, I was just thinking that, I'm just trying to put myself in y'all's shoes.
Very, very good questions. Appreciate you. And then Scooter, if you would like to address that, go ahead.
The other night during the meeting, I said, can we compile a list of roads that may fit this D subset? And it would take each councilman compiling the ones that they know of, because there's no defects and there's stuff we had never worked on. I know I have 7 that I know of. Am I gonna put them all in there? No. There's some of them that I've been telling them this ain't happening. If they come to me and go, we would like that, are we gonna have a process in place for people that ask for them to be put in, or are we just gonna?
They're not that, because, I mean.
Go ahead, Jeff.
It'd be no different than, I mean, if you'd have asked Randy before this, he would have said they wanted their road in, without knowing that they don't. So how do you go through your district and pick
We're not
these
just
roads without
add
going to
roads
each
just
individual owners and roads and say, do you want?
Mr. Chairman.
Well,
Because you don't really know.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so, Mr. Randy would like to say something.
I think during the public hearing, during the discussion, I like the idea of 100% of people signing a piece of paper saying 100% of the occupancies said they're in favor of you taking in the road. Then we make that decision to see if it meets the criteria.
So Brandon, to maybe help answer your question, Sam, we got how many motor patrols? 1, 2, 1, 0? How many motor patrols you got? How many graders? How many motor patrols you got in the parish? 1. Does he stay busy 40 hours a week grading roads? I hear you. So to answer your question, Brandon, is it gonna cost us anymore? We got one guy on the motor patrol, and that's what his job is. So, you know, except for the weeks he's on vacation, because he's probably the only guy that can run it, you know, he's grading roads for, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Are roads gonna get neglected? I mean, I think that if roads are getting hit 3 times a year, if we get too many roads, you might only get hit twice. You know, we can't answer that question, but so far as impacting the budget, it's not gonna cost us anymore, other than, you know, than if we have to, unless we have to put some riprap down, which is basically free to us anyway. So, I mean, I guess it probably isn't gonna impact the budget. It might impact the number of times existing gravel roads are graded, but as a budget line item increase, I don't think it's gonna be there.
Very good. That's what
Appreciate
we're
that.
looking for, you know?
Appreciate that, Gary, and
Yeah.
appreciate that, Scooter. Anybody else?
You know, I might say something.
Go ahead, Sam.
I'm all for helping the people. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, it's all about the people that live here in this area, and we definitely want to help them. But what you might want to look at it and consider, you know, when you maintain a road, Mr. Moody, for over 3 years or more, that road becomes a parish road.
I think the way the ordinance is written.
So that's a state, I think that's a state law, state requirement.
Can become. It is not will become, it can become. Am I correct, Chris, in the way that thing's written?
I think it would,
Well,
go ahead, Mr.
Mr.
Williams.
Your thing is it becomes a public road.
Becomes a public road.
Right, and so the level of maintenance that you give any
Decided
road is
business.
always up to the
Right.
parish.
That's right.
It usually becomes more into play as to whether or not other landowners can then count on it as being a public road, so that can't be blocked by other people in front of them.
And so I think that's where the 100% signature thing that Randy was talking about needs to come into play, so that somebody in the back can request a road into the system, so 3 years later, he can go subdividing his lots, you know what I'm talking about, and force access. So I think that that's why the 100% deal that we didn't think about in committee needs to be, that Shane brought about, and I think needs to be important. But
It's a noble
Just so
ordinance.
you guys know, we don't repetitiously go through the parish and grade roads. We grade on request. Because I didn't want to get into a situation where you might have to take that road, that substandard road into the parish. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, but now we've got our
We
subset.
grade these roads on request. If Mr. Randy requested, if Mr. Tracy requested, or if one of the residents on the road requested. That's when we go grade. We don't just make a
Routine.
1 through 9 and grade gravel roads.
My only
Right,
comment,
appreciate
sir,
that.
is-
Go ahead.
My
Go
only
ahead,
comment is that, you know, I think it's a noble ordinance and you want to take care of your people, I get that. But you're probably going to ensure that these roads will always be substandard. You know, you're going to dress them up. Always before, you had some incentive for them to upgrade it and put up the money to have it fixed up at least to a certain level. Now you're going to be doing that for them, and you've removed that incentive to go and improve their own road. Another concern is, are you going to be capping this at the roads that are currently in place, or will some of these pop up and you'll be scattered all over the parish with substandard roads?
Well, can I?
Yes, go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, we have to address it. Yeah, we're going to address that in the sense that, all right, so I guess a lot of the roads that are of this, it was a gravel road that doesn't meet any kind of requirement. At some point in the past was a driveway. If somebody owned, 50 acres or 100 acres, and they had a driveway going down it, and so they subdivided that property and, built a house for their daughter or their grandkid. So they just kind of tied into the driveway. And as time passes on, the patriarch of the family, so to speak, passes on, they sell the property just gets subdivided and subdivided and subdivided. And now, next thing you know, there's 15 houses on this driveway. That was, or a road that was meant to be a driveway. It was a driveway. So, going forward, and I know it's up for a discussion on this, I was thinking we need to create an ordinance that says, if you have land and you want to subdivide a piece off for, a relative or whoever, at that point, you make that, you break off that piece, you subdivide that property, then you have to give the 60 feet for.
You have to set it aside.
You have to set it aside. Now,
For the right of way.
For the right of way. You don't have to change your driveway, but you got to set aside that 60, because now you're potentially making that driveway into a road. Now, you could never, it might not ever come into play, but now your road is, now your driveway has become a road. And at some point there might, and if you got 2 acres and you put a house on one, you subdivide it, you can make it that way. You can never change your driveway. It's still, it's still going to be the same, but it's going to come into play where you have, you might put 15, 20 houses. At that point, you're going to have to leave room for, if later on it all gets chopped up, the parish can come in and say, look, we have something to work with. Because if you mortgage a piece of property, you're going to go all the way to the driveway, and then it's hard to break that loose whenever you try to say, well, look, we can widen the road. I want to give this much up. It's harder to do in that regard. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Randy.
One thing I want to make clear too, we're still not weakening the ordinance that's in place. The current roads that have to be built now have to be built to the standards. These are roads that were not authorized to be built by standards or got missed by the loop. So roads coming in, if they still have to be built by the standards. These Class D roads are roads that we're going to be able to get the public back onto the road, particularly the school buses and the mail service.
Appreciate that. Go ahead, Scott.
Should we put it like the day we pass it or the day it becomes ordinance, anything built after that cannot make it onto that deed, so that they can't just go make these and they can upgrade?
Any roads built after, we started that a long time ago. You can't build a road unless it meets parish standard now.
No, that's not true.
You can build
any road.
You can have.
All right, let's not get out of order here, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
Healthy discussion.
is there anybody here that would like to answer that question? If not, I could try to give my opinion on that.
You've been reading about it a lot.
Go ahead and try.
Okay, so I don't think we need to put a date, or anything like that. I think that this is gonna wind up taking care of itself. I really do. I think that individuals that that live on I guess you could say type D road, where we're providing the bare minimum when it comes to maintenance, there will still be some incentive there to upgrade that road. And what will have to happen is the individuals that actually live on that road in some way, shape, or form will have to come up with a way to fund the upgrade. And then, once that happens, then, they could bring it before the council to see if it can become a type A, B, C road, and what I call a full-blown maintenance. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. Y'all also have, the last couple of weeks, and I really feel like we're covered here with our bases. We just need to kind of probably make sure. I mean, if you think about it, if the D roads are not subject to the same division requirements as A, B, and C, then you're going to be limited on how many divisions of property there, and that type of stuff. And so if, I don't know, say it was a 5-mile long road, and maybe there was some incentive 10, 15 years from now to divide that further, then, you would have to wind up bringing that up to a parish standard of A, B, and C before you would be able to subdivide off of that, And so, I mean, like I say, I've thought a lot about this. I feel like we're covered on this. I think it's a good move. I think it's a smart move, and so hopefully I answered your question there. Let's go ahead and wrap this up and move on. It's 7:45. So, did you want to say something, Tracy? You look like you might want to say something.
No, I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, anybody else? Apologize if I rambled on.
No, that's all right.
Okay, so, all that being said, did anybody make a motion
I
on
made a
this?
motion, we introduced the
Randy
ordinance.
made the motion and Scooter seconded it, and so we're gonna, do we need to read this? We already read it?
Already read.
Call for the vote.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Mr. Mack,
Yeah.
Mr. Wassam,
Yes.
Mr. Delat,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris,
Yes.
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Garlinghouse.
Yes.
You heard that?
All right. Agenda item number 20. This is a waiver request of section 125-12, requirements for minor subdivisions for Michelle Morales on the number of lots on a servitude located on 18650 Macklin Road in Council District 1. That happens to be Mr. Jeff Art's district.
Yep. Michelle, do you want to come up and speak on this? Kind of explain to them what you got going on?
Michelle Morales, 18652 Macklin Road. I have a question. Y'all were saying once a road becomes named and has a 911 address that it changes the lot, like you don't have a lot requirement. Is that what you said? Or?
No, we were talking about whether these substandard roads, if they came into the parish, would that change the lot requirement? And the intent is not to change it, it's to leave it as it is, and so we're gonna ask the parish attorney to look at it to make sure the introduction of the last ordinance, if we adopt it, would not change the number of lots that went on it, because we're still trying to maintain the restrictions on minor resubs with respect to parish roads and right-of-ways.
Okay.
So we just don't want that road to become what is called a parish road that we refer to in the restrictions on minor
Okay.
resubs.
I just asked because today we have a new road sign up. They gave us 911, like changes from being on Macklin Road to a different road name. So I was just curious. But I own 5 acres. We have one servitude and another servitude that me and my neighbor, he owns 5 acres behind me. We maintain it. I'm trying to subdivide the back 1.63 acres off to sell to him. And he had, before I did this, he had subdivided an acre off for his sister-in-law to build on. So Weyerhaeuser owns across from me a bunch of acreage, and then Mr. Donald Sibley owns a bunch of acreage. So Weyerhaeuser is one of the, lots back there, but we never see them back there. So I'm just requesting that I can have that acreage subdivided off.
And I went back there and looked at it, and there was nothing back there. Just waiting back there.
You made a motion, Jeff?
Is that a motion, Jeff?
I'll make a motion to waive.
All right, motion on the floor by Jeff Ard to grant the waiver, seconded by Tracy Gerlinghouse. Is there any discussion, further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Agenda item number 21, this is a waiver request of section 125-27, driveway culverts and/or subsurface drainage for Robalis Homes to allow subsurface drainage in a subdivision located at 25897 Wax Road, Greystone Lot number 5. This happens to be in Mr. R.C. Bubba Harris's district.
Yeah, I had all these good things. No, I went out and looked at it with Clint, and if you look through here, he's got a drawing of it. And it's gonna be 2 20-foot culverts, but it's going to have a catch basin in between them. And it's tying into another driveway that's already got subsurface drainage and all.
Sam, so the plans on Greystone, those houses that I'm not trying to, but I thought Greystone, the plans on those houses that are attached to Wax already had culvert sizes designated for those ditches. They didn't?
I don't think so, Gary.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'm just.
on Wax Road.
I know, I know the whole subdivision got curb and gutter.
I don't think those were never designated.
We can look and see this, they may have, we can look and see.
I mean, because if you remember, there was three types of subdivisions. There were subdivisions with culverts installed, those designed for culverts and not installed. And those two didn't require a waiver for the deal. And then those that were not designed without them. So I'm just wondering at the time Greystone done, most of the time when we had open ditches in those subdivisions, they had culvert designation sizes already in place.
I have went out there, I say I have, my guys that went out there and sized those pipes
Okay.
before. Now, whether they were designed, I don't think they were, but. You know,
Well, I mean,
Greg wants to look at it.
Well, no, I mean, Bubba grants a waiver. I just was surprised that it was on the agenda, because I would have thought that when those houses on Wax Road that are part of the subdivision would have had the culvert size in the ditches already, but that's, I mean.
Yeah, well, it's, Clint went out and looked at it and determined the size of the culvert stall, which is 18-inch culvert. And it's got two 20-foot pipes going in the ditch and a catch basin in between those two.
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
So who made the first motion?
Bubba.
Bubba Harris made the motion, and it was seconded by Randy Delat. Is there any further discussion? All right. This is to grant the waiver. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. 22, waiver request of section 125-9, submittals to subdivide a lot in Hemisphere Farm subdivision located off of Wax Road and Lee Ellis Road for Blake Matthews in Council District 5. This is also Mr. Bubba Harris's district.
Yes, it is. You want to talk about this, Sam?
I'm sorry?
You want to talk about this one on Lee Ellis Road?
We went out there and looked at it.
Yeah.
And it's all good.
Right, it's 5 lots.
Well, why do they need a waiver, Bubba?
Because of the name. And I don't agree with that, and nothing nobody can do about it.
Well,
It
because
used to be Hemisphere Farms 100 years ago. I know.
Because you was alive
I
100 years ago.
I was a senior in high school, and I had, listen to this. And I had bought stock in Hemisphere. Well, that fell through, and of course I lost my money. But it's still Hemisphere Farms there, is what they go by. And that's the only reason we have the issue of a waiver.
Oh, so they call it a Hemisphere Farm subdivision.
Right.
I got you. So it's the names, it's a subdivided in the name subdivision. You making the waiver?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Waiver on the floor, grant the waiver to subdivide this property. Seconded by Gary Talbot. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Agenda item number 23. This is.
June 11th.
Huh?
I'm deferring that.
Okay, yes, sir. Agenda item number 23 has been deferred. Agenda item number 25. This is a waiver request of section 125-3. This is a prohibitions and restrictions of use to allow a mobile home to be placed in a named subdivision for Jason Weedman. Weideman, I apologize. Weideman, located in Wonderland subdivision, lot number 7, Jewel Lane, Denham Springs. This is Council District 3. And so, Mr. Scooter, do you want to?
Yeah, Jason did call me. He's his mother lived there in a trailer before the flood. Trailer's since been torn down. There's 2 lots. He's getting them donated from his brother to him. But he needs a waiver because the trailer always crossed the lot line. It was in the middle of the 2 lots, running horizontal to the road.
I second Scooter's motion.
Yeah.
He's not doing it. He's not doing it. He's doing it. His son's going to move in there.
Yeah, his son's gonna move in there, and I told him, I said, dude, we have to, our rules say that you can't cross the lot line, so we gotta give him a waiver.
So you want to make a motion?
Make a motion, and he
I'll
seconded.
second, all right.
Seconded by Randy Delat.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay,
All in favor?
this is 25, grant the waiver. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Yeah,
Nobody?
This is you coming up.
Okay, so this is an agenda item that I requested be placed on the agenda. This is agenda item number 26. This is adopt a resolution to reduce the speed limit on Dawson Lane from 15 miles per hour to 10 miles per hour. And request that the Department of Public Works install caution children at play signs at both entrances of Whispering Pine subdivision located in Council District 9.
I second that motion.
All right, so I can't make the first, but if you'd
That's
like to
because
make
I
the
made
first.
it. I already made it.
Oh, I apologize. Good job. John Wascom, we're gonna get you. John Wascom made that motion. It was seconded by Randy Delat, and then Tracy, we're gonna
No
go with you
question.
with a question.
No question.
How long is that
It's extremely short.
Okay. 10, man.
It's a,
You sprint through there, they can pull you over.
it's an extremely small subdivision, what I consider to be a small subdivision. It's a U back there with kids being out of school. A lot of people, a lot of kids, you know, riding bicycles and stuff. And so I got with the homeowners association and told them that if the majority of the folks inside that subdivision agreed to, that's what that subdivision, those property owners wanted to do, that I would bring it before the council for a vote. And so, from what I understand, that's what they so choose to do.
My yellow truck won't even idle at 10.
Better ride and brake. Better ride and brake.
You pull those kids over riding those bikes.
Well, yeah, I went through there myself in my car, and it was a lot of wonderful, beautiful kids riding their bicycles, and I rode the brake all the way through, and I think that's a good thing.
I was about 10 miles an hour, I'm gonna put the sign.
Speed bumps next.
Okay, so,
All in favor?
so we got an agenda, we got a second. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. Number 28, this is the district attorney's report.
What?
No report by the infamous
Don't run off yet.
Mr. Chris Moody.
4 months to say that.
31.
Committee reports by our committee chairman.
I'm gonna be right back.
All right. Okay, so ordinance committee, we
I
had,
think we pretty much discussed everything ad nauseum.
I tell you what,
Next Tuesday night?
Yeah, next Tuesday night at 6, we have a meeting. Try to have one every week until we kind of feel like we've caught up. Forgive me, I think, you have something on there?
Yeah, it's gonna be some ordinances that are being brought forward to us from Gravity Drainage District 1, 2, and 5 are back in their decision on these ordinances. It's dealing with subsurface drainage, and it's got a lot involved, so people need to stay tuned or show up.
Is that, okay, so what is the agenda? So is it just that, is that gonna be the only thing on
That,
there?
and I think,
So we're on the same page,
Oh, all
so
right,
same
so-
thing combined.
yes, so that's the
So we
only
give
item.
waivers every week. I want to look at this on the,
It won't hurt at all to discuss this.
I think it's going to be long.
Yeah, it's gonna be
So,
very
one
long.
item.
I was
Okay.
told there's
Okay.
several ordinances that they want us to enact parish-wide,
Yeah.
not just in the drainage district.
So,
Do you know what the
That's it.
agenda needs
We'll
to
get
say?
it to you before, so you can read them, Shane.
sounds good. Appreciate you, Tracy, doing a great job chairing that committee.
thank you so much.
Finance committee, Mr.
Finance
Jeff.
committee didn't meet. Our next meeting will be before the next council meeting on the 11th.
Appreciate that. Are there any councilman comments? Are there any councilman comments?
Oh, Lord.
Go ahead, Gary.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
That was agenda item number 31. We got a motion by Gary Talbot to adjourn. Second by Jeff Ard. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right.
Everybody, enjoy the week.